So today's video is going to be an interesting tale about when Scream Factory released one of the craziest 80s movies I've ever seen twice. That's right, they released the movie twice. And this goes into an era of Scream Factory that is no longer the Scream Factory we see today. Because for this to happen, somebody working at this company has to love this movie. Now Scream Factory feels a little bit more like a machine, right or wrong, but it just is what it is. What movie are we talking about? Well, we have to go back to the very early years of Scream Factory. I'm talking when Scream Factory first was basically a thing. They released this movie that I won in a giveaway of a guy who had a YouTube channel named Jordan. Now, Jordan, if for some reason you're seeing this, I still got it, dude. Thank you. This movie changed, blessed, and somehow ruined my life all in the same token. I'm talking about Ninja 3, The Domination. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Okay, Ninja 3, are the first two Ninjas crazy? I wouldn't know. I've never seen the first two Ninja movies, and everybody that I've ever talked to has said, oh, you don't need to see the first two. Just go watch Ninja 3, The Domination. It's the most bizarre, crazy movie you'll ever see. Let me just set up Ninja 3 for you in the opening scene, because this is the greatest opening scene you'll ever hear of. It takes place on a golf course. Now, golf course is usually a setting that's tranquil or sometimes funny. You can look at movies like Caddyshack for golf that are hysterical, or even Happy Gilmore, which there's going to be a sequel to Happy Gilmore maybe this year or next year. I know, I'm really excited for it. You don't really think of gore or terror when you think of a golf course. Well, in Ninja 3, a ninja invades a golf course and lays waste to bodies all over the place. It's one of the most surreal scenes you'll ever see. A ninja drops bodies on a golf course in the beginning of the movie. So we're already starting off at a pretty crazy place, and not to mention, if I didn't say this yet, this is a canon film. So if you're not familiar with canon movies, Menahem Golan made some of the craziest movies ever made. They didn't always make sense because there was this culture barrier, and he just said make it, make it, make it. He'd hire people to do these movies. Now, editing time was not something that canon believed in very much. You get in, you cut the movie, and you put it out. It doesn't matter if it's crazy, if it doesn't matter if it didn't make sense. There are some hysterical movies that canon put out that just make no sense, and there's others that are considered classics today. But Ninja 3 cannot really be considered a big movie from canon, but I guess it could still be considered a classic because most of the time when you bring this movie up, it brings a laugh. Maybe not necessarily a smile, but a laugh. Now, after that, Ninja 3 goes through the eyes of this beautiful woman in this movie. Now, what happens to this woman? She gets possessed by this ancient ninja warrior, and she doesn't even realize what the hell's going on. But there are moments in this film that once you see it, they will stick with you for the rest of your life. Now, Ninja 3 is a crazy movie that, in all seriousness, just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But this has stuck with me. Stuck with me. And I mean stuck with me since the first time I saw it. Now, most women know the way how to seduce a man, but this would just disgust me to no end. The star of the movie, Lucinda, decides she's going to try to arouse her male companion. The way she does this is pour V8 juice down her neck, and it's just the nastiest, weirdest thing I've ever seen. I'm just trying to imagine on set. There was a crew on set. There were people on set that were there for this, that knew what they were doing. There was somebody calling action. Somebody had to clean up the V8 juice. Somebody had to bring the V8 juice to set. There was a discussion for them to do this. People, humans with brains, decided to pour V8 juice down a woman to try to be sexy. It's disgusting. What the hell were they thinking? But all in all, Ninja 3 is just this bizarre movie that when you look at the catalog for canon, to be called bizarre in the canon catalog is pretty impressive. And Ninja 3 is at the top of the list for weird. I won this Blu-ray in a giveaway years ago, and if I'm looking at this right, yeah, 2013. So this means that at the birth of Scream Factory, this movie came out, which goes to show that this was at a time where people involved with Scream Factory were genuine cult movie lovers. And Ninja 3 came out with not a whole lot of a fare at the time, I don't think. As a matter of fact, the only way I heard about this was winning it in a giveaway. I didn't see people having this in their collections at the time. Granted, it was mostly horror collections I was seeing, but Ninja 3 was a movie that at that time, I don't know how big of a fan base it had in the physical media world. Now, this release is fine, especially at the time, but basically it has a commentary by the director and stunt coordinator and the theatrical trailer. Now, that could be considered a special edition in that time, but wouldn't you know it, Scream Factory did something I don't think they've ever done before or since. They re-released the movie on Blu-ray again. That's right. This is from 2013 and this release is from 2018. A 5-year difference. Not going from Blu-ray to 4K even. They just said, this wasn't good enough, we're gonna do it again. Now, that is just the coolest thing to me. Because it's not like they're just trying to milk out a title by going from Blu-ray to 4K. I mean, we're already talking about a cult movie at best with Ninja 3: The Domination. But somebody at the company decided, it wasn't good enough. We're going to do this release right and have a lot of special features. So 5 years later, they did a collector's edition of Ninja 3: The Domination. And they even hired an artist to do new artwork. Now, here's the original artwork that was on like the VHS and poster. And they hired an artist to do artwork. And you can reverse it to have this on here. But they hired an artist to do art for Ninja 3. That is so freaking cool. And it's a new 4K scan at that in 2018, which at that time was pretty impressive too, because that was a thing that was coming around, but for Scream Factory, not something I was noticed too much. 2K scan, sure, like for Return of Living Dead and The Thing, but a 4K scan for Ninja 3 at that. That's just so freaking cool. But if you look at the back, the special features bar is pretty thin, but on the new one, it is chock full of stuff. Let's look at it. Okay, so we got a 4K scan from the original film elements. We have a new interview with actress Lucinda Dickey, a new interview with actor Jordan Bennett, a new interview with producer stuntman Alan Emil, a new audio interview with production designer Elliot Ellentuck and co-composer Misha Segal featuring isolated tracks from the original score, audio commentary by the director and stunt coordinator, theatrical trailer with optical trailers from hell commentary by screenwriter Josh Olson, and still gallery. Imagine if Scream Factory still operated like this. Imagine if there was a release in the past that they thought that just wasn't good enough and they just thought they could do better and they decided to do a new version. I can't think of another instance where this happened from Scream Factory, much less for a movie like this. Now, if they would have done something like this for The Thing, I guess I could see it because that's such a popular title, but somebody at that company, somebody at Scream Factory back in the day loved this title enough to decide we could have done better, and they did it. That is the coolest thing a boutique label has ever done, in my opinion, and I just miss this era of Scream Factory so much. Now, this release is still readily available. I think the original is out of print, but this is the release to get, and it's a great release. If you haven't seen Ninja 3, when I say it's one of the craziest, wackiest canon movies you've ever seen, I mean, it makes the Texas Chainsaw 2 look like the most normal movie ever. Ninja 3 is a bizarre, wacky kung fu movie with V8 juice, ninjas attacking golf courses, and I just love the fact that somebody at Scream Factory loved this movie enough to make sure that there was a proper release done for the fans of canon movies. So that's today's physical media tale, when the craziest movie got released twice from Scream Factory. If you're a fan of Ninja 3, please let me know, and if you haven't seen it, by all means, you can get this pretty cheap from Scream Factory on Amazon and other places, and I promise you, you'll never see anything quite like Ninja 3: The Domination. So in the world of physical media, there's a lot of interesting tales to tell, and I intend to try to tell them all, and in today's episode, it doesn't get much crazier than Ninja 3 from Scream Factory. Huge giant thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Without you guys, this would not be possible. To get behind the scenes photos, videos, music, private live streams, and much more, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you to my patrons.